Hey everyone, thanks for joining Man vs. Meeple. My name is Lance and I'm here from Learn to Play Games to teach you how to play Dragon Eclipse. This is a brand new game from Awakened Realms, who sponsored this video. It is a 1 to 2 player game that takes roughly 1 to 2 hours to play per session, and the game itself is played as a campaign where you're going to be playing multiple sessions to make your way through the adventure. In the game, you are going to be playing trainers who have an affinity with mistlings, these little cute creatures that can use elements to do all kinds of different things. And the world is in turmoil again. Things are happening, something is going on, and you are tasked with finding out what that is and using your little mistlings to help you make your way through this adventure. So in this video, I'm going to take you through teaching you how to play, starting with components, setup, and the different stages of each one of the scenarios. As always, if you find the video helpful, if you like what we do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel. It's one of these ways you can help support channels like ours so we can continue to grow and produce this content. If you want to stay updated on all of our videos, also hit that notification bell and that'll let you know whenever we drop new videos. So let's go ahead and head to the table and I'll teach you how to play. I would recommend, before diving into the video, checking out some of the different tokens you're going to be using and familiarize yourself with those, as I'm not going to be going over them in this video, but you're going to find some of them on page 9, and the rest of the condition tokens will be found in the advanced rules section on page 32. Each session of Dragon Eclipse has 3 stages. These stages are before the scenario, playing the scenario, and after the scenario. And each one of these stages has a number of steps that must be done in order. I'm going to take you through each one of these in more detail and explain how each one of them works. With this, I am going to start with playing the scenario, as in your first play session, you are going to skip before the scenario. So let's go ahead and jump in. So in my video here, I'm going to follow the same steps as the quick start guide. So there is some narrative that I'm not going to cover in this video that is going to get you into what's going on and all that. And then you're going to be making your first selection for your mistling, which one you are going to select for your game, unless you're playing a 2-player game, in which case then you're going to be using both of the mistlings. From there, then it's going to move into combat and exploration. So I'm going to do the same thing in this video. Once I have selected my mistling, then we're going to move into combat, and I'll cover all of combat, and then we'll go into the exploration. I'll cover all of that as well. So anyways, in this step, you're going to select which mistling you want, and you have either the young emberling or the young iceling. So I'm going to go ahead and check the young iceling. So I'm going to gain its card, its bonus ability card, and its quest ability or quest card. I also will gain the water element card, as you're going to be using the element of your mistling. So my mistling is water, so I'll get the water element, and the 6 cards for my mistling, which are my mistling specific cards. I'm also going to gain the 10 card starting deck. And if you're unsure which cards these are, you'll just take one of each of the starting cards, which will have a little S up in the top corner. It also tells you all of the different names of the cards in the breakdown on when you're selecting your mistling, if you're still not sure on that. The other mistling can be returned to the case or follow the directions on here, which has you adding it to the random combats divider. Unless, again, you're playing 2 players, in which case then the other player will take the other mistling. So now that I've selected my mistling, I'm ready to move on in the adventure book, and A20 is going to again have a narrative that you're going to read and is going to introduce you to your first combat. So with that, I'm going to show you how to set up your first combat, where you're going to place your arena board out based on the number. And so first off, it's saying that you're going to gather arena card 35. So I have that here. It's the cobbled square, as you can see. And this one is going to go on the side of the board, and you're also going to open up to map 2. And so I have the upgraded neoprene mats, but otherwise you'll simply open up your book to map 2 and make sure that it's map 2 based on the number of players. So if you're playing a single player, it's map 2. If you're playing 2 players, it's map 2 with the 2-player icon in the bottom corner. From there, then you're going to continue on. So your first enemy is going to be the Wind Riser. And so you're going to gain cards 169 and 170. And with this, it also notes that there are 2 different types of Wind Riser enemies, and you need to grab the Frightened Wind Riser. And so with that, then the next thing to do is to gain a Major Corruption, card A, if you're playing with 2 players, which I'm not going to be covering currently. And then you're also going to have a modifier and gain 1 crystal, power crystal. From there, then you're also going to handle any special setup instructions on your Frightened Windriser. So first off, it has a special ability with a number 3 on it, so it means that its special ability is going to be triggered when there's a card above section 3 on the map. So you're going to place a universal token on that space, so you know when a card goes on there that you're going to trigger the Frightened Windriser's special ability. Next, you're going to build the enemy deck. So go ahead and grab the enemy attack cards based on the player number. And so I have the solo player cards, and you're going to gather up the cards that are listed on there. So I'm going to have 2 triangle cards, 1 circle card, and 1 square card. The rest of the cards can be placed off to the side as you're not using them in this combat. And then these cards are going to be shuffled up. And once you have them shuffled up, you're going to place them face up in a stack above the play area. And then you'll also follow any additional instructions on there. So there's additional setup where you're going to place a tornado token in each one of the little umbrella kind of spaces. So I'm going to gain those. Oop, wrong ones. I need these. And these are going to be placed with the side that has the black background. So signifying that these are enemy tokens. And so I'll have 1 here. I'm going to have 1 there and 1 way up there. After you've completed that, you'll flip the card back over to side A, which is going to list its different attack abilities in that, and place both of those cards in its area that is going to be in the top left-hand corner of the arena. You'll also place its miniature or standee out, whichever you're using, in slot 1, and your miniature for your Mistling in slot number 2. From there, then you're going to go ahead and set up your Mistling. So with that, you go ahead and grab all of the cards that you have. You'll have your 16 card action deck. You can shuffle that up and place that in this area, and then start by placing out cards face up, starting in slot number 4 and working your way to the left, filling up the 4 different slots for that. Then with your Mistling, you're also going to place out your Mistling card along with its special ability, and the water elemental card for its bonus actions, and your quick reference card. Now, one important note with this is if this is the first time you are playing, there is a quick start guide that has a specific setup for the different cards so that everything is organized, and there are certain sequences that you're going to go through, so it will kind of guide you through that. So if you want to go ahead and do that, you can also do that if you want at this point. From there, then, we have completed setup, so I'm ready to move into combat and explain how all that works. There's a couple of additional important notes that I want to point out before getting into the combat itself. So after the first couple combats in the game, you're going to have some additional things. Some of the enemy Mistlings are going to have a taming card, so you're going to place that on the side of the board. And with a player, if you're playing solo, a lot of the times you're going to have 2 Mistlings, and you'll get to choose which one of them you want to use for the given combat. So make sure that you set that Mistling up. I also want to point out that there are a number of changes if you've chosen to play a 2-player game. Now, I won't be covering those in the video, but the rulebook has those highlighted in the pink areas that are going to outline all the different changes for the 2-player game. And the final thing is during setup, when you place out your action cards, if the first set of action cards that you place out you do not like, you can choose to mulligan that set, removing all of those cards and placing them off to the side, dealing 4 new cards starting at the end and working your way to the left. And then with those cards you discarded, adding them back into your action deck and shuffling it back up and placing it face down. You're only allowed to do this once per combat, and only during setup. Combat in Dragon Eclipse is played over turns, and this is going to alternate between the player taking a turn and then the enemy getting to take a turn. And this is going to continue back and forth until one of 3 different conditions is met. First, if there are a number of damage points on your Mistling that is equal to or greater than your health of your Mistling, then you have been eliminated and will lose the combat. Alternatively, if the enemy Mistling has a number of damage tokens equal to or greater than its health value, then it is going to be eliminated. And finally, if you have met all of the different conditions on the taming card, then the combat is going to end and you will tame that Mistling. In combat, you're going to be using different action cards. They're going to have effects and different timing for those effects. So first off, you're going to have active effects, and these are going to be resolved immediately once you play the card, and these are going to have an open frame around them. Next are passive effects, and these are going to have the shaded closed off area or frame with the two parentheses around them. These effects are going to be passive and are going to be in effect as long as the card is on the top of your discard pile. Now, these cards might also have other immediate effects that are outside of that frame that you'll resolve when playing that card. And the final type of effect are upgrade effects. Now, some action cards have a long-lasting effect that apply as long as you do not shuffle your deck. You can play an action card that has an upgrade frame and attach it by placing it under your misling sheet so that the effect in the frame is visible. From this moment on, the effect applies. And when you reshuffle your deck, you're going to discard your upgrades and reshuffle them into the rest of your action cards. Now, you may only have one upgrade card attached to your misling sheet at any time. If you already have an upgrade card attached and you resolve another card with an upgrade, you must discard one of them. The cards that you have upgrade effects may still have active effects that resolve before attaching the upgrade to your misling sheet. Another important aspect with elements are the elemental advantages. And as you can see here on this chart, this represents how the elements interact with each other, and each element has a strength against another element. So this is going to be represented by advantage icons, which you're going to find on both misling cards and on enemy cards. And with those, you're going to have advantage icons that are going to be followed by some sort of an effect or ability. So as long as your enemy matches that type of element, either as its main primary element or as a subtype element, then you get to carry out the effects of that. So for example, with the Young Iceling's card, Frostbite, this card normally provides an attack with a +1 modifier and Pierce 2, and if the enemy that you are fighting is a fire enemy, then you also get to perform a second attack with this card. And it works the same way with enemies. So on the Frightened Windriser's card, it has an attack +2 modifier, and if the misling that it is fighting is a earth misling, then it gets to perform a second attack with that. There are also 6 different keywords that I want to go over. The first of which is range, which is not technically considered a keyword, but is a very important concept. So with range, it is always measured in spaces and always counts any space in between the maximum and its space as well. So for example, with a range of 2 from my misling, it would count each one of the spaces it is adjacent to as range 1, and each space that is adjacent to those spaces as range 2. Nothing blocks range unless it specifically says otherwise. Keyword move has you checking the misling's movement value and moving that number of adjacent spaces. For example, with my Young Iceling, its movement value is 2, meaning that I can move up to 2 adjacent spaces. So adjacent spaces to my misling are all 6 of the spaces that are surrounding it. So for example, if I choose to move down as my first point of movement, now I can move 1 additional space based on my movement value that is adjacent to my current space. So any one of those 5. So then I can move here, for example, if I wanted to complete my move. Now, alternatively, I don't have to use all of my movement as well. So I could have chosen to stop here if I wanted to, or if I want to attack this other misling, I could choose to be adjacent to it and end my movement there. Keyword attack has you verify that you are first adjacent to your opponent, then you're going to take your opponent's defense and subtract it from your strength value, dealing that amount of damage to your opponent. So as you can see here, my opponent has a defense of 0 and my strength is 4. So I will do 4 damage to my opponent, adding 4 damage tokens to my opponent's card. The next keyword is a sequence of words. As you can see, it says deal X damage in range Y. For this example, I'm going to use the card Primal Shot. As you can see here on Primal Shot, it's going to deal 2 damage in range 2. So the first thing I have to do is verify that I'm within range 2. So I am 2 spaces away, which is range 2. Next, I'm going to look at my opponent's willpower. As you can see, that is 0. And so that is going to be subtracted from the overall damage that the card is going to do, which is 2 damage. So 2 minus 0 is still 2. So I will deal 2 damage and place 2 damage tokens on my opponent's card. The next keyword is Trigger, which you're going to see on Synergy as a starting card. Trigger allows you to resolve another card after choosing this card. So from there, I could choose one of these other cards to activate. Now, with that card that I select, I will not gain any crystals for activating that card. and I can only trigger one card at a time. So if the next card I choose has trigger as well, I would not get to resolve that effect, and for any other card after that. Combat always starts with a player's turn, and during your turn you're going to resolve action cards and use bonus actions. You can never act with your misling unless an effect on a card or bonus action allows you to do so. For example, you may only move with your misling when you resolve a card or bonus action with a move keyword. So other than that, during your turn, there are 5 steps you're going to do in order, and a couple of these steps are optional steps, so you do not have to resolve anything during these steps. The first step in your turn is an optional step, and this is resolving a bonus action or actions. Most bonus actions are going to be found on your element card, and others might be found next to your mislings card, which is the special ability bonus actions. You'll also have other potential cards that will give you bonus actions. Now, a couple of important notes with bonus actions. Each one of them is going to have a cost in power crystals that you must spend in order to activate that action, and each bonus action can only be done once per turn, no matter which step you choose to do it in. So, for example, I can only perform one dash action during my entire turn, but I can do each bonus action one time. So right now I have 3 different bonus actions to choose from, which are dash, prepare, and my special ability bonus action, which is cold drain. I also have an elemental bonus action, which is flow. So each one of those I could do one time during my turn, as long as I have the power crystals to spend to do those actions. The second step in a player's turn is resolving an action card, and this is going to be the main part of the player's turn. In order to do this, you're first going to select an action card slot that has a card in it, and there are 4 different action card slots. So I can choose any one of these slots as there is a card in each one of them. From there is one important note with this. You may choose any card from your slots, even if the effect on the card wouldn't do anything. For example, with this hit and run card, it has the effect that it is going to cause me to an attack. I can select this card even if my opponent or I do not have an opponent within range 1. Once I've made my selection, so let's go ahead and say that I choose this hit and run card. I will gain the number of power crystals listed in the slot above that card. So in this example, I would gain 3 power crystals and I would add them to my area. Now remember that you can only have a maximum of 10 power crystals. So if you gain a number of power crystals that would put you above your limit, you will not gain any additional power crystals above the limit of 10. From there, then you're going to resolve the effect on the card from the chosen slot, reading the card from top to bottom and left to right. You must resolve all effects on the card unless you are unable to do so. For example, if there is no opponent in range, or the effect states otherwise, such as that you may do something. Once you've resolved all the effects on the card, you're going to go ahead and place that card in the discard pile. Now this is very important, as there are a number of different sequences where you will not discard the card you selected until you resolve the effects on another card, for example with trigger. So let's look at a quick example of that. So let's go ahead and replace this card here with trigger, and let's go ahead and say that I chose trigger to activate. From there, the trigger allows me to activate one of the other cards in one of the other action slots. So let's go ahead and say that I chose hit and run then. When I select this, I will not gain any crystals that are listed above this slot, and then I'm going to carry out the effects on this card. Once I've carried out all those effects, then this card is going to be placed in the discard pile, and then I'm going to come back to the trigger card. As there are no other effects to resolve on this card, now I'm going to discard this card so that it is on top of the previous card. The third step in a player's turn, again, is optional and is, again, resolving bonus actions. Now remember, with bonus actions, you can only resolve them once during your turn. So if you resolved any bonus actions at the beginning of your turn during step 1, those actions cannot be done again during step 3 of your turn. The fourth step in your turn is draw. During this step, you're going to first slide all of the cards that you have remaining in your slots to the right, and then you're going to draw new cards, replacing the empty slots. If you ever have to draw a new card and your draw pile is empty, you're going to reshuffle your discard pile and place it in your draw pile, and then continue filling your slots. The fifth and final step in your turn is the end of turn. During this step, you're first going to resolve any end of turn effects in the order of your choice, if there are multiple effects you must resolve. After that, then you're going to discard one condition token of each type. So in this example, I happen to have all 4 condition tokens, and each one of these condition tokens I can only have one of at any time. So I get to discard all 3 of those tokens, as I only have one of each. Before removing a burn token, you're going to take a number of damage based on the number of burn tokens you have. So in my example, I'm going to take 2 damage, and then I'll remove one of the burn tokens. From there, then you're going to start the enemy's turn. So now that I've gone through the 5 steps of a player's turn, before getting into the enemy turn, let's put all of this together and go through one example of this. Now, one important note before getting into this that I do want to point out is that you always know what the enemy is going to do during its turn, as you're going to have the card revealed that's going to tell you exactly what the enemy is going to do. So on that card, as you can see here, it says that the enemy is going to perform an attack that has a +2 modifier. So it's going to deal 5 damage. But the important thing is that it is not going to be able to move beforehand. So as long as I'm not in a space adjacent to the enemy, it's not going to be able to attack me. So I want to make sure that I end my turn not adjacent to the enemy, so it will not have that opportunity. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive into the turn. So the first step in my turn, again, is the bonus actions. So I want to be able to get in range of the enemy so that I can attack it, as I have a few options here with some of the cards that I have access to. So I'm going to go ahead and spend my only power crystal to activate dash, which allows me to move. And my movement is 2, so I can move up to 2 spaces. So I'm simply going to move there and to be able to attack the enemy. So from there, that is the only bonus action that I can perform, as I don't have any more power crystals at this point. So then I'm going to move into the second step of my turn, where I can choose any one of the action cards in the action slots. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this hit and run. So first off, it's going to give me 3 power cubes or power crystals. So I'll add those to my area. And next, I'm going to carry out the actions on that. So it's going to allow me to perform an attack action at a -1 modifier. So my strength is 4, and my enemy's defense is 0, as you can see. And it's going to have a -1 modifier to that. So now my strength is 3 to my enemy's 0 defense. So I'm going to deal 3 damage to my enemy, adding 3 damage tokens to it. So let me grab those. All right, so those will go on my enemy's card. And then from there, it also allows me to move if I want to, which again allows me to move up to 2 spaces. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I will move 1, and I could choose to stop there if I wanted to, but I'm going to go ahead and move 2 spaces. I'll go there. All right, so that is going to end all of the steps on that card. So then at that point, that card will be discarded. And then it's going to move into the third step of my turn, which again is an optional bonus action step. So now that I have some more crystals, I could choose to use some of those crystals to activate some of those bonus actions. Since I've already used dash, I cannot choose that action, but I could choose any other action if I wanted to. So for example, if I knew my opponent was going to attack me, I could do this prepare action, which allows me to discard 1 card and draw 1 card. So I could choose to discard this card, as it has a passive defense ability, which would give me +1 to my defensive stat, as long as that card is the top card in my discard pile. So that might be important if I knew I was going to be attacked, but I am out of range of my opponent, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'm just going to hold on to my power crystals at this point and move into the fourth step of my turn, where I'm going to move all of the cards down and replace any empty slots with a new card going from the right to the left, filling up those slots. The final step of my turn is the end of turn effects. I have no conditions that I have to resolve now. Or any effects that I have to resolve. I don't have any condition tokens to resolve, and so it's going to move into the enemy's turn. After you've completed a player's turn, you're ready to move into the enemy's turn. And during its turn, an enemy is going to resolve one of its effects, and every few turns, the enemy is going to resolve its special ability. In order to handle an enemy turn, you're going to go through 4 steps that are going to be resolved in order. The first step in an enemy's turn is to slide any attack cards 1 slot over on the enemy's attack slots. And there are 5 different enemy attack slots. If you happen to have a card in the 5th space that you must slide over, it's going to simply be added to the discard pile. So in this first step, I'm going to add this enemy attack card to the first space, as there are no enemy attack cards to slide over one space at this point. Now there's a couple of important notes with this. If the enemy deck becomes empty at any moment, you're first going to gain one fatigue card and place it on the top of your discard pile. Fatigue cards are not removed after combat, and they are placed in your deck during a single scenario and may be removed either by playing them during combat or by various other effects during the adventure. If there are no more fatigue cards to gain, then you're going to simply gain 5 wounds instead. Then from there, you're going to reshuffle the enemy attack discard and create a new enemy deck. Do not discard any enemy cards from the track that are still there at the time of reshuffling. The second step in an enemy's turn is to resolve the enemy attack card in slot 1. In order to do that, you're going to reference the symbol on that card with the enemy's ability card. And as you can see here, that symbol is going to have the enemy perform an attack action with a +2 modifier. Then if my Mistling has the earth element, either in its main element or subtype element, then this enemy is going to get to perform another attack action, resolving that a second time. So with an attack action, again, it must be against an opponent in an adjacent space. So with this enemy, he is not able to attack me as I am not in an adjacent space. So that attack will not happen. And then once I've resolved that enemy attack card, I'm going to flip it over to its back side. The third step in an enemy's turn is to check and resolve the special ability. So if there is an enemy card above the space that has a universal token, in my enemy's example, it would be space 3, then I would resolve that enemy's special ability, which with my enemy, its special ability is to blink to a space with a tornado token of that enemy's that is furthest from the opponent. If there is a tie, then I get to choose which space to go in. So currently I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces away from this tornado token and 1, 2, 3 spaces away from this token. So it would blink to this space. But if I was in this space, then I would be equal distance at 4 from each of these tokens. So I could choose to either place the opponent here or here. It would be up to me. Now, once you've resolved the special ability, then all of the cards in those spaces, in that space and all previous spaces, are going to be placed in the discard pile. The fourth and final step in an enemy's turn is end of turn, where you're going to first, again, resolve any end of turn effects in the order of your choice if there are multiple effects to resolve. Then you're going to discard one condition token of each type from the enemy's card, if it has any, and then you'll get to start the player's turn again. And this is going to continue bouncing back and forth between the player and the enemy, continually taking turns. Before moving on, there are a couple of important notes that I want to point out with this. So first off, with enemy's movement, if you are equal distance, you get to choose which spaces the enemy moves to as long as it is the shortest path possible. So let's go ahead and say, for example, that the enemy was going to move to get adjacent to my Mistling. And I happen to have a token in this space. So let's go ahead and just place a water token in here, for example. Now, currently I don't have an ability that triggers this, but let's go ahead and use it for the example. And let's go ahead and say that if the enemy moves into this space, that it's going to take 1 point of damage. So in this example, if the enemy wants to be adjacent to me, it has 2 different options, as both of these spaces are 1 space away. So I get to choose as the player which space the enemy moves into, so I can choose the space with my token in order to deal that damage to that enemy. And this is the same with any kind of situation where you have multiple choices. As long as they are valid choices, you get to choose which option the enemy takes. Another important thing with enemies is that there are 2 important keywords that are exclusive to enemies, which are retreat and rush. And I want to take a quick look at each one of these. The first one I want to go over is retreat, and this is going to have the enemy move to the space that is furthest away from you on the board. If there is a tie, then you get to choose which space. So for example, in this situation, I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces away from both of these spaces, which are the furthest spaces away from me on the board. So I will get to choose as the player which space the Windriser is going to move into. This is going to have no relevance on the Windriser's movement value. And if the Windriser is supposed to retreat and is already in the furthest space, then it will simply not move in that situation. Now the other one is rush, and this is going to have the enemy move towards you to try to get to adjacent to you by the shortest possible path using its movement value. So with the Wind Riser, it has a movement of 3. So it's going to move by the shortest path to try to get to an adjacent space of mine. If there's a tie, again, the player gets to choose. And if, for example, the Wind Riser is here and is told to rush, it will move to the shortest space. Again, if there's a choice, you get to choose as a player, and then it will stop. It will not move any further. So even though it has additional movement, that is simply lost. And likewise, if the Wind Riser is told to perform a rush and is already adjacent to the player, it will simply not move that turn. Now, once you've met one of the end of combat conditions, which again is winning the combat by defeating your opponent by dealing enough wounds to equal or exceed its health, or losing the combat by taking enough wounds to equal or exceed your misling's health, or if the enemy is able to be tamed and you have met all of the conditions on the tamed card, in any of those situations, you are going to end the combat and resolve and reference your arena card. As you can see here with the cobbled square, it says that if I win the combat, I'm going to go to script A26, and if I lose the combat, I'm going to go to A30. So I did win, so I'm going to go to A26, and it's going to give me some narrative that I'm going to read. And then there's a couple of additional steps that I'm going to resolve. So first off, the Wind Riser's divider is I'm going to add the card 174A side up to the Misling Encyclopedia. Next, I'm going to heal 6 health from my Misling, as its bruises are not as bad as you thought, so I will get to heal the 4 damage that I've taken. And then from there, I have a choice to make. I can try to calm the Wind Riser's nerves. In order to take some of your precious time, I'm going to go to script A78. Otherwise, I can choose to focus on the situation at hand and hope that there are no other crises, and I'm going to go to script A2. I'm going to go ahead and choose the first one, so I'm going to go to A78. And with this one, it is going to, again, give me some narrative, and it says that I'm going to gain empathy part 1, so I'm going to mark that on my status sheet. And then it's going to tell me to go to script A2. Script A2 is going to again give me more narrative, and then it's going to tell me to clear the arena. In order to do this, I'm going to discard all of the components from the arena, and I'm going to place my action deck in my Misling tray, along with any gained fatigue cards if I have any. I'm going to place my Misling card with all of its damage in the Misling compartment and discard all of your power crystals. Do not discard your damage, if you have any, and place the enemy cards behind the corresponding divider. And then you're going to close the arena book or roll up your neoprene mat if you have one. Now that that's out of the way, I can continue on. First off, I'm going to gain a silver piece, and I'll add that to my area. Then each Misling is going to gain 1 power crystal, so anytime you gain power crystals outside of combat, it's simply going to be placed next to your Misling, or in the Misling tray if you're keeping your cards in there. From there, then I'm going to open up map 1. So I'll go ahead and open up my location board to map 1. And then I'm going to place out all items, secrets, and equipment decks in the play area. So each one of these decks, you can go ahead and shuffle it up and place it out. Make sure that you leave room for a discard pile. And normally this step is going to be handled in the pre-scenario step. So I'll cover that a little bit later in the video, but just keep in mind that normally this is going to be handled beforehand, and this being the first session is when this is all going to happen. You're also going to place out all of your tokens and all that, as I've already done for the combat, so I don't have to worry about that. So then the next step is to place Secret 13 face down in its location on the event set, and then I'm going to set the time token with the green side up to 3. And then see what's happening in the city before the Rangers return. So if you have empathy part 1, which I do have, I'm going to lose 1 time because it took me time to take care of that. And then I get to begin the exploration. So there are also a number of different types of cards you're going to be using throughout the game. The first type of card I want to go over are item cards. And on the back side of each item card, you're going to have a number in the top corner that is only going to be used when performing tests. And I'll go over how to do tests a little bit later in the video. Some items are also going to have another icon underneath the number, which is misfortune, and is going to have some sort of negative effect during tests if you have a certain number of these. From there, each item will have the image of the item in the middle of the card, and underneath that is going to be the name of that item, followed by when that item can be used. And there are 3 different times an item can be used. Anytime, which is going to be any time during your adventure that you need to use that item. During tests, so with these, you can only use those items during tests, and in combat, you can only use them in combat during your turn. When you use an item, you're going to follow the directions underneath its timing as long as you play it during that time, and will carry out those effects. Some items are also going to have a little RL in the bottom corner, and that has only significance for when you're playing roguelite mode. Otherwise, you can simply ignore that. Another type of card you're going to be interacting with throughout the game are equipment cards, and you can have up to 2 of these at any time. If you ever gain a 3rd equipment card, you can either choose to use one of the equipment cards you currently have, including the new one you drew, if it has proper timing, or you can choose any equipment card that you have currently, whether it's the one you drew or the 2 that you already have, to discard, making room for the new one if you want. From there, each equipment card is going to have a number of pieces of information on it. In the top corner, some of the equipment cards are going to have a symbol or symbols, and there are 4 different ones that you are going to potentially interact with: gear, light source, food, and tools. From there, you're going to have an image of that equipment, followed by its name and its timing, which again could be any time, combat, or tests. From there, when you use the item, you'll follow directions on the bottom of the card, and these cards are also going to have the RL or roguelite mode on them, which again, you don't have to worry about unless you're using it for roguelite. And some cards are not going to have any information on them and are simply going to be used for their symbols. I also quickly want to go over arena cards, as there's a whole collection of these cards included in the game. Each arena card is going to list the number of that arena card at the top, followed by its name and any special instructions, including additional setup instructions where you're going to be placing out terrain or other features on the arena map, and any special rules that apply to those features that you're going to be adding. From there, then it's going to have an image of that arena and any end of combat conditions at the bottom, where it's going to tell you which script to go to based on which condition you met. And some arenas will also list for random combats and where to go, as well as if you tame the enemy, win or lose, and which script to reference. Another important thing I want to cover are tests, and tests are a quick push your luck element that is going to be in the game that is going to use your item deck. These are going to be resolved for a number of different reasons, including certain times when determining actions that you're going to be taking. Sometimes it'll be in adventures that are going to advance the story and will have consequences depending upon how you do. In any situation, each test is going to have a test table, as you can see here, with a number of different results, with gray results being neutral, green results being positive, and red results having some sort of negative effect. Now, on item cards, the only information you need to pay attention to are the numbers and the misfortune icon, as you can see here. From there, with a test, you're simply going to reveal item cards from the item deck one at a time and carry out a number of steps. So let's go through this. The first thing I'm going to do is reveal a card from the item deck. All right, so this item card has a value of 3. From there, then I can choose to end the test or go back to step 1. So with this, I don't have enough there to have any of the results yet, so I'm going to go ahead and go again. All right, so I have a 2 now, so my total right now is 5, and I do have 1 misfortune icon. So I want to be careful about getting another one of those, as the end result, if I have 2, it is going to be a bad effect. But I'm going to go ahead and push my luck a little bit further and see if I can get a positive result here. Oh no, so I got a 4, so totaling that up, that's going to give me 9. Now at this point, since I am in a red area, if I don't have any way of modifying that, then I must end the test immediately and resolve the effects. Now I do happen to have the rope, which says that I can use it during a test, and it allows me to add or subtract 2 from the result. So by doing that, I can subtract 2 from this, getting a total of 7, which is a great result, as you can see. This result is going to gain me 1 item, and I can gain secret number 2, and then I go to script A79. Once you've resolved the effects of the test, go ahead and discard all the item cards that you drew to the item card discard pile. Also, during tests, if you ever run out of item cards to draw, go ahead and reshuffle the item discard and create a new draw pile. I also want to point out, if you're playing a 2-player game, there are no changes in the exploration. If you have a hard time making decisions, you can choose to use the decision token, which will be passed back and forth and will give one player ultimate say for that decision, and then the token will be passed. So during the exploration, now what I'm going to do is look at and choose locations that I want to visit in town, referencing those numbers on my adventure book. Each time I do this, I can look and see what that location is. Most of the time, it is not going to require me to spend time. So let's go ahead and look at A29, for example. At that particular location, again, it's going to give you a narrative that you're going to go ahead and read. And then I'm going to choose one of the options that I wish to carry out. Now, some of the options will have certain requirements that you must meet, such as having tokens on the map or whatnot. So as long as you meet those requirements, you can choose that option. Once you've selected an option, you'll simply carry out the effects of that option and continue on with the exploration. And some options will have you spending time, which will have the little hourglass symbol, as you can see here. In this way, there is no set amount of time where you have to do each action, or each location has certain actions. You can do it any order you want to, checking out each one of the locations. Now, there are some situations and some locations that you will go to that once you go there, it will have you spending time regardless of what you choose, and that is dependent upon what map you're at. Now, as you spend time, you're going to move your time token down on the track. And if you have to spend time and it's on the last space, you're going to add it to your secret. And then the next time one of your choices tells you to continue the exploration, you're going to go ahead and flip that secret token over, or card over, and resolve the effects on that card, which are normally going to tell you certain things are going to happen. You may add tokens to some of the different numbers, and then you're usually going to flip over the time token and place it back out and continue playing. Now, when the time token reaches that space again, that normally signifies the end of that exploration or the end of whatever you can do at that location. And this is going to vary depending upon what locations you go to. There's a couple of additional notes that I want to go over with this. So first off, there are going to be times where you're going to be adding A and B tokens to these different things, which are going to change the outcome of certain scripts based on those locations. There's also times where you're going to be adding overlay cards that are going to cover up locations, potentially locking those locations out, or again, changing the location in some way. Also, removing those overlays may unlock that location or have some other effect. End in an exploration is going to end when you encounter the end of exploration instruction. You may find it on an event card, you may find it as part of the story in the adventure journal, and sometimes you'll have the choice to end the exploration on your own. When you end an exploration, you're going to follow the following steps. First off, you're going to discard all secrets from the location map, placing them back into the secret deck. You're going to discard any event and place it back into the secret deck. Discard all tokens from the map. Do not discard tokens and secrets placed in front of you. And finally, you're going to go ahead and close the location map book. When the exploration ends, the adventure journal is going to instruct you what to do next. The third stage in the session is end of scenario, and there are 6 steps you're going to do in order, and I'm going to go through each one of these in more detail. The first step is gaining access to new scenarios, where you're going to be updating your world map and placing new cards in the sleeves, or flipping cards over, or removing cards depending upon what happens in the story. Step 2 is opening up a random blister pack, and depending upon the edition of the game, it's either going to be a sealed blister pack or one that you pre-constructed during setup. And you'll get to open that up and add it to your unlocked cards. Step 3 is going to be gaining advancement cards, and the scenario is going to tell you which one of the decks to pull cards from, which is either going to be Advancement Deck A or Advancement Deck B. Once you've determined which deck you're going to go ahead and use, collect that deck, shuffle it up, and you're going to draw out 8 cards from that deck, minus 1 card per fatigue card that you have in either one of your action decks, to a minimum of 3 cards. From there, you're going to place those cards face up, and you're going to choose 3 of those cards to add to your unlocked card divider. The rest of the cards you did not select, if any, are going to be added back into the advancement deck, and that is going to be placed back in the organizer. Step 4 is discarding all fatigue. So at this point, you're going to go through both of your action decks and remove any fatigue cards from those action decks and return it to the supply. Step 5 is going to have you healing your mislings. So go ahead and remove any damage that you've taken at this point and return it back to the supply. The 6th and final step is saving the game, and there are 4 different parts in this. The first one is taking one or both of your mislings that you have and any cards, action cards that are assigned to them, and placing them behind the party divider. You can also choose to include the pre-constructed decks that you've made with these if you want to. Any other action cards that you have that you do not want to include with your misling can be placed in your unlocked cards divider. The third step is to place any equipment cards, which you can have a maximum of 2 of, any item cards, which you can have a maximum of 3 of, any secrets that you have collected, essence, and coins behind your inventory divider. From there, then you can return all other remaining components to the box, and your game is saved. Let's go ahead and take a look at how the first stage in a session works, which is before the scenario. This stage is going to have 8 steps that are going to be done in order, and I'm going to take you through each one of these steps. The first step is component setup, where you're going to be placing out all the different components you're going to be using for the game, including any tokens and organizers that you have and all the cards that you need. You're also going to go ahead and grab the item deck and shuffle that up and place it out so that there's a space for discard. You're going to do the same thing with the equipment deck, shuffling that up and placing that out. And I also like to place out the enemy attack cards based on, again, the number of players that I'm playing, and place that somewhere that I will have access to, because you'll be using it in pretty much every combat that you face. You can also place out all the rest of the materials you're going to be using, including the location book and the arena book, or the neoprene mats if you have those. You'll also need the adventure journal. Step 2 is going to have you taking any of the inventory that you have behind the inventory divider and placing that out in your area. So with that, I have all of these different things. Step 3 is navigating the world map. So you want to place the world map out, which you're going to gain at the end of scenario 1. From there, the world map and the world map cards are going to show specific locations in the world that you can explore before and during scenarios. From there, let's go ahead and go over navigation. So at the start of this step, you're going to be able to visit explored locations. For that, you're going to choose an explored location card on the world map that shows a Z script, such as this one here that states Z13. You're going to find that corresponding script at the end of the adventure journal, and you're going to read the script and choose one of the options listed there. If you choose to visit another place option, you're going to repeat these steps again. Step 4 is choosing a scenario. So after visiting any explored locations that you wish to visit, you're going to choose a brand new scenario to start by selecting one of the unexplored cards and turning to the script listed in the adventure book. Once you do, you're going to be able to get a brief introduction and have a chance to reconsider your choice if you want to, or if there are multiple choices to be had. Step 5 is going to be reading the introduction and any hints. The starting script is going to have an introduction that provides you with a brief insight into your goals for the scenario. Hints also offer useful information on how to prepare for that scenario, such as which mislings that you might want to select and other information that'll help you making a decision on this. Step 6 is reconsidering or starting the scenario. So at this point, after reading the introduction, you can choose to reconsider moving back to the world map, or you can choose to start that scenario that you've read the introduction for. Step 7 is choosing mislings, and you can have up to 2 mislings that you control during a scenario. For this example setup, I'm just going to be placing out the one. I don't want to spoil anything and some of the cool things that you're going to run into along the way. So when I'm selecting this, you're going to place your misling out along with its special ability card and your element card and reference card for that. And you'll do this with both mislings that you've selected, or if you're playing a 2-player game, then each player will choose 1 misling to bring along. Some mislings are also going to have a quest card, so you can put that out next to the misling, and you might be able to meet the requirements of that to be able to improve your misling throughout your adventure. Before getting into deck construction, I want to go into a little bit more detail about the action cards and some of the iconography and differences you're going to find on those cards. So first off, there are 3 different types of action cards. You're going to have neutral cards that will have no symbol in the top corner of the card. You're going to have elemental cards that will have an elemental symbol in the top corner, which means that only mislings with that element in their main element slot or subtype slot can take those cards. And then finally, you're going to have misling specific cards that will have the name of the misling in the top corner of the card. With some of the cards, you're also going to have a little letter on the top corner, and this is going to signify if the card is a starting card, an advancement card A, or advancement card B, which also is kind of a way of rating how powerful that card is. And finally, at the bottom of each of the cards is going to be a little icon, and there are 5 different card rarities in there. As you can see here, there is common, rare, ultra rare, legendary, and misling specific cards. The final step in this is performing deck construction, and you're going to do this for each one of the mislings that you've selected for this mission or this scenario. So from there are a number of different guidelines that you must follow in order to construct a new deck of action cards. And for this, you're also going to want to take out all of the cards you have behind your unlocked cards divider, any of your misling specific cards for the misling that you've selected, as well as any advancement cards that you've unlocked so far, and any cards from the blister pack that you've opened. From there, let's go over the deck construction rules. So first off, a deck may only consist of action cards. It must consist of 16 action cards, no more and no less. It must have a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 6 of the misling specific cards, which are the cards with the misling's name on them. The deck can only have 1 legendary card, and a deck cannot contain any cards of an element that is not of the chosen misling. So my misling is a water misling, so I can only have cards that have the water element or cards that are neutral. If my misling had a subtype, I could have cards of that subtype, and normally the subtype is also going to have a little number next to it, which is the maximum number of cards of that subtype I can choose to include in my action deck, as you can see here. So from there, let's go ahead and take a look at how this works. So with this being my very first deck construction, I don't have a whole ton of options available to me right now. I have my 3 advancement cards that I selected in the previous scenario, and my deck, which the legendary card in this deck is a wind card, and my misling is not a wind misling, so I cannot choose to take that. So I will not have a legendary card in my deck. I do have a couple of water cards here, and 1 water card there, and there are no other neutral cards in that deck, so I don't have to worry about that. So from there, I have to choose the cards that I want. So I definitely want to take, I think I want to take this Rolling Waters, and the Seeking Tendrils seem pretty handy, so I'm going to take both of those. So that's 3 cards. I have to take at least 3 of my misling specific cards, and I can take a maximum of 6. So let's go ahead and take the 2 melee ones, because this misling can dish out some pretty good damage. And I'll take a Freeze, and I think I will take a Drain. So we'll start with that. So that is already 7 cards that are going to be added to my deck. So I'll go ahead and hold off on these 2 for a moment. And Heavy Strike is an attack, move an opponent 1 range up by up to 2 spaces. This one gives me a Power Crystal. If it's in slot 3, I gain an additional 2 Power Crystals. So that could be good for generating a lot of power. So I think I'll take that. So that's card 8. And this one really could let me move around really handily. So I think I will discard that one for now. So at this point now, I am at 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 cards. So I have the rest of my cards are going to be made up of the starting cards. So I'll go ahead and take that one there. I am going to go ahead and take a movement card, but I think I'll take the focus one. Offensive stance might be good, but desperate attack would be great. I'll take a trigger card. So that's 4. I got 2, 3 more. So I'll do Blink. That'll let me move around pretty handily. Hit and Run is pretty useful. And I'm going to go with 1 defensive card. So I'll take that one there. All right. So from there, that is my 16 card deck. So I'll go ahead and take that deck. You can shuffle it up at this point or wait until the first combat. Well, I hope you found the video helpful in learning how to play Dragon Eclipse. As always, if you have any questions or comments, please post those in the comments section below and I'll do my best to answer them. And until next time, I'll see you later.